a candidate for president, so they would be the obvious, first up. Secretary Mayorkas would be there because he is the cabinet member that for Homeland Security, and overall, this is something that he has larger cognizant authority over. But they're also looking at a variety of other things. Remember, next week is the RNC, the Republican National Convention. Now, I'm not sure what level that is, but sometimes these things, depending on what's going on, can be designated a national security special event. If that happens, security for that is led by the Secret Service because of the serious nature of what it is. If you see things like the Super Bowl or major sports events or things like that, that high profile that terrorists might try to take advantage of, many times they will be designated national security special events, and the Secret Service has lead for that. But with that, they are backed up by everything else within the Department of Homeland Security. And in fact, they may grab special agents from other departments like Homeland Security investigations or other parts and components, if you will, of Department of Homeland Security, and to buttress up the total force that's out there that they can use, that they can utilize in protecting the event or protecting the protectee or protecting both, I should say, in these situations. And I imagine right now, if I was in charge of security at the Republican National Convention, I think by this point I would have everybody that was working with me would be in there, and there would be some very rapid planning going on for next week. And I imagine there's going to be some things that they're doing to improve the security posture. They've certainly probably adjusted the threat condition or the threat con, if you want to call it that, in terms of what that's going to look like. And they're also looking at every other political event in the country. This is not just one thing. They're going to be looking at whatever President Biden's doing. They're going to be looking at whatever Vice President Harris is doing. They're going to be looking at any major high-profile political events. I would imagine they're looking at all the potential vice president nominees, or the short list, if you will, of those that might be picked as the Republican vice president. And I imagine they will be contacting all of them and saying, "Hey, you need to kind of, pardon the expression, hunker down. You don't need to go out and do things. You might want to take a heightened security posture, and if they don't have security, they should probably do that." Now, if they are a sitting governor or something like Governor Youngkin, he would have his own state security force that would probably heighten his personal security. And then, of course, for those who might be a senator, the Capitol Hill Police has personal security individuals who might be immediately assigned to some of these, those who might be on the short list or those who might be higher profile. And then they're going to be also looking at, leaders in Congress, and in fact, it'll go across all government. Every cabinet member has a security detail. Secret, or I should say, the Supreme Court has their own police force. They have security details. So all of this will be increasing commensurately until they figure out what has happened here. They don't know exactly what the circumstances are. And to my knowledge, and Austin, you're watching this closer than I am right now, I don't think they have a perpetrator or perpetrators in custody, from what I gather.
Hal, we're actually following that closely right now. And what I can say is that we're seeing some initial reporting, and if a producer in the room can correct me here, I'm seeing some reporting from the Washington Post to indicate that Trump was grazed by gunfire, but is safe. An audience member, according to WAPO, was killed, and the shooter is dead. Another person is in serious condition. We're working to get that confirmed ourselves, but the Washington Post is reporting that for now. So just to back up, an audience member dead, okay. The shooter dead, another person in serious condition, according to the Washington Post. So Hal, when you hear that the shooter is dead, what comes to mind? How could this thing have gone down? We really don't have a lot of details to go off of right now.
No, but that's a lot of information. And that really does narrow down the possible scenario. That kind of gives me an idea of maybe where the round may have come from. Obviously, it hit somebody, an audience member. We don't know where in the audience they were, where it came from, but somebody around him obviously was, and that the person was killed. You know, what's not clear here is was somebody else possibly wounded. The fact the shooter is dead, that could be a couple of things. You know, in some cases, they will take their own lives after they do something like this. In other cases, it could be what we didn't see was when you heard that initial gunfire, perhaps some of that follow-on gunfire was actually law enforcement or Secret Service out there taking down the shooter. So we're getting a lot more information as far as what this is looking like, and the fact that they have shot the shooter or they've taken out the shooter means that they're doing a deep dive to figure out everything around them. They're looking, you know, obviously collecting any physical evidence, if there's a vehicle around, anything like that, wherever they live, they're going to be looking at that. They'll also be doing a very deep dive on all their social media. They'll be looking at, you know, anything that they've been doing online because there may be connections that just aren't apparent right now that they're going to find.
Right, Hal. So we continue here to show some more of that footage from earlier today. I do want to bring up this, though, breaking news. It has been confirmed by the Associated Press. We have here shooter dead and rally attendee killed at Trump event in Pennsylvania, Butler County District Attorney tells the AP. So we are going to continue on this conversation, of course, but for right now, for anyone that has just joined us, I do want to go ahead and re-rack that entire chaos, that incident that happened earlier today. We have been showcasing on the screen, but of course without sound, and I think it's very important for the audience to just hear in full exactly what happened. So I'd like to play that out for everyone here next.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move it spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move. Go.
Up. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Move it to spare.
Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready.
We ready?
Down. Down.
Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move?
Down. We're good to move.
Clear.
Let's move. Let's move.
We're clear.
Come on.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
Got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, my shoes down. My shoes.
Watch out.
Wait.
Okay, there you have it, the very scary, intense moments from earlier today in Butler, Pennsylvania. They're at a campaign rally for the former president. We do have a breaking news at this moment, courtesy of Blake Hansen over at Fox News. Here, he says the AP is confirming shooter dead and rally attendee killed at Trump event in Pennsylvania. Butler County District Attorney tells the AP. Let's continue on dissecting this entire chain of events and where this investigation goes from here. Joining me once again, I have my colleague Austin Westfall, and also national security expert, counterterrorism analyst, and also someone who has worked closely with the Secret Service, Hal Kempfer. Austin, I understand that you also had some comments to make about this breaking news and something you would like to ask Hal.
So, you know, I'll just reset real quick for the folks that may just be joining Donald Trump's campaign says that he is, quote, fine after being whisked off of the stage after those apparent gunshots rang out. The quote that the campaign sent out says that President Trump thanks law enforcement and first responders for their quick action during this heinous act. He is fine and is being checked out at a local medical facility. More details will follow. We've also heard from the Secret Service in a statement that says that the former president is safe. We do know that President Biden has been briefed on the matter. He's met with the director of the Secret Service. He's also met with the head of the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. So, Hal, my question for you, we're talking about a rally attendee being killed. We're working purely in the realm of speculation here, but there were people sitting behind Trump. This is not out of the question that this could have been some sort of collateral damage.
Oh, the attendee that was killed certainly was collateral damage. I would say at this point the working assumption would be that President Trump was the target. I don't think anybody would assume that they were aiming at anybody else. I can't imagine any scenario where someone would plan to murder someone or to shoot someone at a presidential rally. That just wouldn't happen. That wouldn't make any sense. So obviously President Trump was the target, but look, he's surrounded by people. If you look at what's going on there are so many people around him. Initially, when we didn't have any reports anybody had been hit, I was a little bit surprised. There are so many people there that if a round came from almost any direction, one might assume it was going to hit somebody. And of course, it does tell you something that it not only hit someone, but they are deceased, which will, I could make some inferences on, without knowing anything about the ballistics, that it has to be a fairly substantial round that would do that. So I'm thinking it could be a very small caliber round, and that would be consistent with what we heard. But with that said, now that I know that somebody in the area was actually killed, depending on how many rounds were fired, it could be a larger caliber round that was further out. We don't have a lot of information on this. That's the issue right now. We don't know much. It could have been something as small as a 22, which is a very small round. It could have been something larger like a 380. Those tend to be smaller rounds, or sometimes called 9mm short. Those are smaller rounds, or a 25 caliber round. These are all smaller rounds. And these might be rounds that somebody would put in, say, an improvised firearm that they could basically sneak into a rally like this and maybe use it as a weapon. They probably wouldn't have a lot of rounds that they could fire. It wouldn't be a fully fledged firearm like a regular semi-automatic weapon. It'd probably be very limited in what it could do. And but that could have been somebody who was right there. Although what we see is that there was somebody, everybody turned off, to President Trump's right, and they were all looking out that direction. And so I'm waiting to find out where this individual, where they actually, engaged him and basically killed him, the shooter. I want to find that out because it looks like the round did come from President Trump's right-hand side. He was turned to the right, and he got winged in the ear. He got grazing fire in the ear, and he has an injury there. And it could be that somebody was aiming for his head, and with something like that, he may have tilted his head. He could have done a lot of things that basically was very fortuitous in terms of he moved in such a way that it wasn't a more catastrophic injury. But we don't know. We don't know all the circumstances. What we do know is that obviously he's okay, with the exception, of course, he has a small injury in his ear where the round hit. But we don't have a lot of other stuff. But they're going to be looking very closely. A lot of times, as we say in the terrorism world, before they're acting out in the real world, they're usually active as you can imagine in the virtual world, and they're communicating through social media and various other platforms with like-minded individuals that may have the same sort of violent extremist beliefs that they have, assuming that this is a violent extremist thing, which it could be simply some other motivation. It could be mental illness. It could be a lot of different things. But they're going to be looking at that to find out, is there more than just this one incident? Is there possibly a broader conspiracy? Could there be others out there who are planning to do something connected to this? And that's what they're going to be trying to figure out very quickly.
All right, Hal, we're going to keep the conversation going with you. Austin Westfall, my colleague here, going to be preparing to continue on this coverage. Austin, thank you so much for joining us as we continue with this developing story and everything that you've been able to provide to this context. We're going to see you up here in just a little bit. For everyone else that's going to stick with us here, though, Hal, I want to continue on with kind of the next steps. I did have a question when it comes to this rally and everything that happened there. I did see that almost immediately after they escorted the president, the former president, out of there, everybody kind of dispersed and all of the attendees left. Is that protocol? Wouldn't it be almost beneficial to investigators to kind of keep witnesses there on the scene, or how do they go about processing that and making sure that no suspect were to get away? Of course, we do know now that the shooter is dead. One person was killed. But again, how does that entire process work?
Well, normally what they want to do is, first off, they don't necessarily want to keep them in place. They don't necessarily want to keep them, in the stands. I mean, that's an active crime scene. They have to investigate that. So they're going to want to move people to another area where they can interview them. They can do anything else. They can look at any potential forensic evidence that they may have on them. And so they're going to be doing a lot of that. They will probably move them out, and I would hope in an orderly manner. That's been an issue with crowd control, and that's one of the things I do is I work on what's called crowd management, train crowd managers for incidents like this, on how we move people from point A to point B to where we can control the situation and do all these other things that have to be done. And hopefully that's the case. Now, there have been events in the past where there was a shooter, and sometimes the crowd disperses. And it happens so quickly that there isn't a lot of control on where they go. And it's very difficult because they have to go back and figure out who was there. And it can make for a very lengthy investigative process. And there can be gaps in the investigation because they're trying to figure out who was there and who wasn't there. So they're going to be doing that. The other thing they're going to be doing is they're also going to be looking at all the video from people's cell phones, from media, from everything else. And they're going to be trying to identify everybody who was at this rally. They want who they are, why they were there. They're going to want all the information they possibly can. They're going to interview each and every one of them. And they're also going to be keeping in mind that there could have been, depending on what they find out, they're going to be looking initially to find out if there are any other potential co-conspirators, if you will. Somebody that could have been in the crowd that was planning on either that was doing something to assist the shooter, or maybe was there in some sort of assistant sort of role. Maybe they were a backup shooter or something. There could be a lot of different scenarios that they have to rule out very quickly. Secret Service is extremely good at this. They know the mind of a would-be assassin or assassins probably better than anybody else in the world. That's what they do. They fully understand the mindset, whether it's based on violent extremist beliefs, whether it's based on some sort of mental illness, if you will, a variety of other motivations that they might have. And they have this pretty much figured out as far as what to look for. And so they're going to be doing all of these things, but they're also going to be collecting a lot of evidence. And that's one of the reasons they want to move people in an orderly manner. They want to kind of get them out of there, but they also want to start collecting evidence from them as well. And of course, it's an active crime scene. I mean, not only has a former president been injured, but there's actually been a homicide that took place. So they're investigating that.
All right, Hal, we are continuing to show the moments when all of that happened earlier today in Butler, Pennsylvania. Stick with us here. I do want to pull up this photo that we have from Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. In the aftermath of that, you do see the blood on the president's face and just above his right ear. Let's get to the latest from the Associated Press here. They say this: Donald Trump's campaign said in a statement that the former president was, quote, fine, after a shooting at his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A local prosecutor says the suspected gunman and at least one attendee are dead. President Trump thanks law enforcement and first responders for their quick action during this heinous act. A spokesman, Stephen Chung, said in a statement, a quote, again, he is fine and is being checked out at a local medical facility. More details will follow. The Secret Service also said in a statement that the former president is safe. Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldigger said in a phone interview that the suspected gunman was dead and at least one rally attendee was killed. We are continuing to follow this developing story that happened just after 6 p.m. on the East Coast, just after 3 p.m. on the West Coast. Joining us once again to continue to dissect this situation is Hal Kempfer, national security expert, also an expert in counterterrorism, and has worked closely with the Secret Service. Hal, any more thoughts as we continue to learn all of these developments? Again, that attendee was killed, suspected shooter dead. I know that we heard those popping noises when I played out some of that scene from earlier today. Would you be able to tell what kind of weapon was used in that scenario?
At this point, we don't know enough. And one of the things I would point out is we're relying on an audio feed that came from from media that's there, and so it's difficult. Obviously, from an audio feed, we have zero direction. We can't tell where it came from. We have no ability to do that. And what we hear could have been muffled. It could have been an echo, if you will, off of other things that are out there. You saw a lot of tentage and a variety, you got a lot of people out there. All of this does things with sound that can be, certainly from where we are, a little bit difficult to ascertain exactly what kind of weapon it is. The fact that it sounded like it was more than one shot, it sounded like it was multiple shots in rather quick succession, would indicate that it may have been a small arm, possibly a smaller ballistic weapon, maybe. And if it was a pistol, assuming it's not a rifle, they said they took out the shooter. They killed the shooter, and that would indicate that the shooter was probably in fairly close proximity, unless they just got really lucky. But it would probably be in closer proximity. That, again, is a supposition. We don't have any details. We don't know that for sure. But if that's the case, it could have been a smaller weapon, and it may have been something like an improvised weapon, sort of what was used, maybe something that was designed specifically to evade all the security precautions at a rally like this. And if that's the case, it may be a smaller caliber weapon. Could be a 22, 25, could be a 380. A smaller type weapon in terms of the type of ballistics involved, in terms of the rounds that would have been fired. But we'll find that out. We'll also find out how the person killed was killed. Were they behind former President Trump, or in around former President Trump? Was that how they were hit? Could it have been somebody that was closer to the shooter? Could have been somebody that got in front of the shooter, or in front of the shooter while they were shooting, or somebody who saw the shooter and tried to take action. We have no information on that right now, and so we're going to find out more about that situation as it develops. But there's going to be a lot of evidence gathering. There's going to be a lot of investigation with physical forensics on scene, looking at everybody's feeds, whatever they were streaming out there, but also looking at anything online with the shooter themselves to figure out who was this person connected with, who are they talking to, is there a broader conspiracy, do they need to change the threat condition across the board? These are all things the Secret Service is doing in conjunction with other law enforcement agencies.
Hal, I do want to bring up this photo that we just got into our newsroom, courtesy of our partners over at Fox 4. Very jarring images that we see there. The moment, it seems, when former President Trump ducked down behind the podium, you see the blood trickling down his face. It must have been so scary for him as it was for people that attended this rally. I'd like you to tell our viewers a little bit about the Secret Service detail that does follow the former president. You had mentioned earlier in our conversation, he is not a current sitting president, but still, he does have heavy security around him at all times. Can you tell our viewers how that works?
Well, he has a security detail. It's not as robust as the sitting president. The sitting president has other things that they have to be concerned with. For example, they are the commander in chief, so they have to maintain communications. They have the infamous launch codes, if you will, for nuclear weapons. There's a lot of things that surround the sitting president that a candidate for president wouldn't have. What they have is a security detail that is really there to protect the protect E, if you will, which is the candidate. In this case, the candidate's former President Trump. So there is a fairly robust capability there. There will be some medical expertise on hand, whether they have a paramedic. I don't know whether they have I would imagine with an event like this, they would probably have something along the lines of an ambulance or something nearby, if for nothing else, just to deal with the heat issues in crowds like this in case somebody gets ill. But with that, the detail itself will have some sort of emergency capability, emergency medical capability, and of course they're fully prepared. They know that what they do, that they're protectee. The reason they're there is because somebody may try to shoot them or try to blow them up, and therefore, or something else, and therefore.
Hal, I'm
they
sorry,
have
excuse me. I
medical
do have
capability.
to cut you off for a moment here because here on your screen, we do have some more breaking news from the Associated Press saying law enforcement officials say shooting at Trump rally is being investigated as attempted assassination of ex-president. Those are powerful words to hear today, especially after seeing what happened at that rally. What do we make of this?
Well, what I make of this is what I kind of expected. I mean, if somebody was killed, in whatever happened, if there was a bystander that was killed, and of course, the former president was wounded, even though it's not a serious or life-threatening wound, if you will, you have to assume, you have to look at this and say, look, that was a bona fide attempted assassination. That's that's somebody was trying to kill former President Trump, and it's fortunate that it did not happen, that he was grazed, and Secret Service was able to get him out of there, get him to safety, and whatever did happen, whatever wounds he has, they're dealing with those, but with that, I would fully expect that's the way they're gonna handle this. And in fact, I would expect they're gonna treat it as an attempted assassination, unless there's some compelling evidence that it wasn't an attempted assassination, because that would be kind of a immediate default of what you have to go into, as what are you looking at? And I can't imagine any other conclusion that they would have at this point based on everything we've seen.
I think that was going to be my next question. To say attempted assassination, what kind of evidence would have to be in place for investigators to come to that conclusion? But I guess what you were trying to say here is that it is an attempted assassination unless proven otherwise.
Well, based on just what they have right there, you have the protectee was wounded. Again, not a life-threatening wound, but it was a serious attempt. And then somebody that was there was killed, was murdered, if you will. And so that obviously, if somebody was killed, then whatever use of force that the would-be assassin or the shooter had was serious enough that they could have obviously killed former President Trump had they hit him if there had been a different type of shot. So they have to kind of treat that as an attempted assassination. Right now there would be no other conclusion I certainly could come to that this was anything but a attempted assassination. This wasn't, there was some speculation initially when they didn't know if there was if former President Trump had actually been hit. There was some speculation that maybe it could have been firecrackers or something like that, and certainly You could have said that initially, maybe if you didn't have any information, and then there was some speculation out there on that. Obviously, this is nothing like that. This was a bona fide attempt to, assassinate a political candidate, and they were using a weapon capable of deadly force because not only did it injure the former president, but it killed somebody, somebody who was a bystander, somebody else around, and we don't have any information on the particulars on that. But obviously, that tells you whatever weapon they have was capable of causing a fatal injury.
All right, so looking here again at that very powerful and compelling image that we have from our partners at Fox 4 News, we're going to continue on throughout the course of this evening as we learn more from this very scary situation over in Butler, Pennsylvania, happening earlier today. Hal Kemper, stick with us here on the line. We're going to continue to speak with you as we learn more. We're dissecting the situation. Just reports that it's being investigated as an attempted assassination. We're going to have more from you coming up in a little bit. Stick with us here. For now, everyone else that is continuing to join us, or if you are just joining us now, we are following this breaking news from earlier today in Butler, Pennsylvania. Two people dead, the shooter and also an attendee that attended the Trump rally. We did carry that moment live for you. We have been playing it for you throughout the course of this evening in case you have missed it, so you can see the moment that all of this unfolded. I would like to go ahead and reset now that we're about to hit the top of the hour here. We're going to continue our commentary. We are nonstop as we continue to get more information from this. Again, a shooting at a Trump rally from earlier today, now being investigated as an attempted assassination. If you are just joining us now, watch the moments this all unfolded. All right, before we do showcase that, as I said, this is developing and we continue to get breaking news. We have President Biden tweeting on this event. Take a look here. He says this: I have been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I am grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service. The president here echoing similar statements that we heard from the former President Trump earlier today as he thanked law enforcement and also the Secret Service agents that helped during that time as we heard those shots ring out during that rally. The former president taking to the podium and speaking at around 6 p.m. Eastern time. That rally was supposed to happen at 5 p.m. Eastern time. It was about an hour late. About 5 minutes into the former president speaking is when those shots first rang out. But again, here on your screen, we are finally getting official word and a statement from President Biden saying, again, I have been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service. Again, though, if you are just joining us, we have just hit the top of the hour and we are going to once again showcase the moment that all of that unfolded earlier today in Butler, Pennsylvania. Let's watch.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Get down, get down, get down, get down. Moving his hair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move to the stair. Stair, get ready. Stair, get ready. We ready? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move? Shooters down. We're good to move. We're clear. We're clear. Let's move. We're clear. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay. Watch out.
Wait. And look what happened to.
Okay, so that clip playing back, and this is something that we're going to stick with for the rest of the evening. We do have national security analyst Hal Kemper still standing by with us here. We're going to keep talking this through. We're getting more and more details in as the evening progresses. As Carell, who so ably has been reporting this breaking news, showed just moments ago, the president has been briefed on the shooting at this rally. He says that he's grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. Biden saying, I'm praying for him and his family and for all of those who were at the rally as we await further information. So, Hal, let's just talk about how we could have gotten here. You've been talking at length about the digital aspect to investigations like this. I'm curious, how do investigators sift through all the noise to find credible information? Because you have to imagine that threats come through the pipeline on the regular.
Thought the Secret Service, U.S. Secret Service, does this better than any other organization in the world in terms of.
C'est clair. C'est la 5.